hi there, I'm Stacey if you haven't met me yet, at least haven't seen my face, and I'm going to be teaching you how to paint this really fun, whimsical sun and moon painting. It almost reminds me of a Tweedledee and Tweedledum, in a way, I guess, and then I'm going to walk you through step by step how to do this. At any time you have a question, if you haven't joined me for a Facebook Live event, go ahead and put your question or comment in the comments, and then I will do my best to keep an eye out for those and to answer those as quickly as I can. And then another thing, if you post a comment, I get those right away, but there's like a 15-20 second time delay between when I say something to the time you hear it. So if it's taking me a little longer than anticipated, that's why. Okay. Alright, so you should have your paints, brushes, water cup, something to wipe your brushes off on. And then if you got long sleeves, if you want to roll those up. This paint we're using tonight is acrylic. And the nice thing about that is you can paint over happy little accidents on your canvas after the paint dries, but once the paint dries on your clothes, it's there for all time. That apron I'm wearing is how I usually use that as an example, but it's got a lot of paint on it, and this has been washed, and it hasn't come out. So that gives you an idea. Okay, so go ahead and take a deep breath in, let it out. If you are old enough and you want to settle the nerves, take a sip of liquid encouragement. If you got some. If not, just take a deep breath in. Make sure to release it. Okay. All right. And then if you have ever watched The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross, I'm just going to start painting, and when you're ready to join in, join in. Just don't wait until the last 5 minutes of class. But the nice thing is if you do wait until the very end, once this is over, you can rewatch me. Okay. All right, so I got all my different paints. And so I got bright yellow. Some of you might not have this goldeny yellow. And if that's the case, to get more of a golden color, you're going to mix a little orange with your yellow when we get to those points, which we're going to right now. So if you take some yellow, put it off, grab a little orange, mix it in. Always start with small amounts, you can always add more. And you actually put that right up to there. They're actually pretty close. Okay. And then the first thing I'm going to do, I'll mix a little water in with this. And we're going to start by just blocking in this side. And then we'll go over to this side and block in this side. So I'm going to go ahead, do my best to find the middle, and I'll make a mark. And then I'll make another one on the bottom, doing my best to split this in half. And then I'll go ahead and connect. All right. And then I'm going to fill in this whole side with this color. If you wanted a little more orange, you could always grab a little more orange. You can just grab straight up orange and put it right on here. And then go ahead, and if your paint starts to stiffen up on you, just go ahead and add a little more water to it on your plate. And yours might be a little more orange than mine. It might be a little more yellow than mine. It's all good because we're going to be adding more layers on top of this. And then what I'm doing now that I got this covered is I'm just going back over what I've already done. I'm just kind of smoothing it out. This is what I have so far. So it's blocked in, but still looking kind of flat. And it's going to be that way until we add more layers in. And then I'll go ahead, give you a minute to get caught up on that. I hope you're all enjoying your weekend so far. My Saturday has been all about painting. I actually had a class this afternoon, and we painted Miller Park. That was really fun. Okay. All right, so once you have this blocked in, we're going to go ahead and put in our night sky. And I'm going to be taking a lot of blue, putting it off to the side, and then just a tiny amount of black in there, because I want to make like a midnight blue. And then again, you can mix a little water in with this. And then same thing. And it's okay if these colors here in the middle touch, because they do kind of fuzz together in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and just fill this whole side in with the midnight blue. Again, you can go ahead and smooth out any brush marks you need to after you get this filled in. And if you run out of paint, you can go ahead and mix some more if you need to. And if it's not exact, that's okay. Just because we're going to be adding some clouds over this and some stars, so if it's a little different, we're going to be changing the color up as we go along, so it will be okay. So now that I got this filled in, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure there we go. I want all my marks to go kind of in the same direction. That's my personal preference for this painting. If you hear that loud clunking, that's my puppy Stanley. He always likes to check in on me while I'm teaching. Okay, so this is what I have. So I got a side that looks like the daytime. I got a side that looks like the nighttime. And then once you are to this point, let me know. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a medium-sized brush, and I'm going to go ahead, and if you notice where the moon is, it's nice and bright behind it, so I'm going to lay that in. And then where our sun is going to go, it's also a little brighter behind there as well. But I'm going to start with the halo that's going to be around the moon. And so I took that midnight blue mixture that we painted this with, and off to the side of it, I took some of that extra and mixed some white with it. I don't want it super, super bright, but just bright enough. And if you need to mix some more of the background color, go for it. And then I don't know if you can see it, but right here I put a little dot. And then from that dot, I'm going to slowly circle around. And I'm going to make this a pretty good size, just because I want my moon to be nice and big. I'm going to have it really nice and filled in the middle, and then as it goes outward, it's okay if the edges get a little fuzzy. Okay, Chara, cool. All right. Yep, you are not too far behind then. Don't mind me, I'm just going in the front right now because otherwise I'm going to have a not so circular circle and it'll be more like an oval. There we go. See if you can see that. Yeah, there we go, and that's what I'm going to put my moon on later. And then also, as we're painting, at any time you feel like you need fresh water, feel free to get up, get some fresh water. If you have liquid encouragement, get some more liquid encouragement. If you're old enough, that is. Okay. So I'm going to next take my background color. And I'm going to mix a little white with it. Just to brighten it up. And then same thing over here on this daytime sky. I'm going to make a spot just so they're kind of even with each other. And then I'm just kind of laying out where I want my sun to go. And how big I want it. I think that's a good size. Now, the sun isn't going to have a halo, but this is going to really help us when we add our sun later. So I'll give you another minute to put these two elements in. So we got the circle for the halo of our moon, and then the circle for where our sun's going to go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to be putting in these rings that go around our sun. And there is orange in there is yellow in there. There is also orange with white mixed together to make a lighter swirled in there. And then there's also yellow and white mixed together in there. So you're going to have 4 different colors you can use. Regular orange, regular yellow, and then the orange with white and yellow with white. And it doesn't matter which color you start with. And you can use your medium brush or your large brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to start swirling. Let me grab a color you can actually see. I'm going to start swirling around our sun. And you could also go in here with just regular white if you want to, especially if you really want to brighten some of the already brightened colors. And we're going to be doing that probably a third of the way down. So if it helps you to make just a little mark, it will get covered up. Just so you know how far to go with the swirls. And then the swirls will be going. If you accidentally get some on the night sky side, that's okay. But go ahead and swirl till your heart's content. And if you need me to go over anything again, let me know. And then the further out you go, it's going to be more like a semi-circle. But then when it's more around where the sun's going to go, you can get a little more rounded with the marks. And then as you're going, you might, oops, don't mind me, accidentally got a little blue. All right. But I got some nice swirls going. And then I am going to go back in here because I want some of these to stand out just a little bit more. I'm going to use my medium brush for that. I was going in with my larger brush for those bigger marks. But if you were using your medium brush, that is fine. But with my medium brush here, you can see that I'm getting a little more definition with just a couple of the marks. I do want some of them to stand out a little. And if you get some that stand out too much, you can always just blend it back in. Any questions coming up as we're working on this? Remember, this is your time. I am here to make sure you leave this class with happy, smiling faces. Don't be afraid to speak up. Okay, so I'm going to stop mine, and this is what I have. So I think I'm actually going to fill in up to there, but the cloud might actually cover that, just in case. All right, so to 7:35 at 7:40, I'm going to have you brace yourselves. But unless I hear differently, at 7:40, we are going to move on to clouds. And the clouds do take up a good chunk of the class. So I want to make sure we have plenty of time to do that. Okay, everybody. So just because I want to make sure we have enough time to work on the clouds, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about it. Now, if you can use a medium brush, you can also use your bigger brush. So you just want to make sure that the brush is dry. So when I mean dry, there's not a lot of water. And actually just take out all the extra water in the brush, squeeze it, make sure it's as dry as you can get it. And then we're going to start with the first coat over here in the night sky. Okay. And then I made a nice medium blue, so I just did blue and white this time to get a nice medium blue. So I mixed it, and then I'm going to go ahead and scrape out the extra paint, because I just wanted this to be as dry as possible so we can get these nice little wispy marks on the clouds. All right. And so for the clouds, we're going to go ahead and put this guy in first. So I'm going to start on the edge. And then when you do it, you're going to kind of wisp like this. And you're not going to press down very hard. Okay? So really, really, there we go. And then I'm going to bring it to the middle here. If it overlaps into the daytime, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead, and you can see I haven't refilled my brush yet, but I'm still getting a good amount of paint coming that eye. So a little bit goes a long way. I'm just kind of going over it again. You could maybe have some little random wispies. Okay. So I got the first layer for the cloud on there. And then I'm going to go into the middle one, and I just want to make sure I leave room between. But same thing, I'm going to start with that medium blue. Scrape off any extra paint. And this one, he's kind of angled upward. And he gets kind of close, but I'm still going to leave some space. And then he quickly kind of turns there to the middle. And then I'll go back in, kind of fill him in a little bit. If you got a lot of marks going one way with it curving, try curving it the other way. If you feel like you need to switch directions with the way you're curving those marks. But again, not a lot of paint on the brush. And if you put some on and you're like, oh, that's too much paint, go ahead, scrape your brush off, maybe rinse it off and dry it, and then move that paint around with a clean, dry brush so not a lot of paint on there. Or no paint on there and no water. Just kind of move that around so it gets that nice wispy effect. And that's a prime example. If you have too much paint on there, it's going to be pretty dense. So again, just scrape off any extra paint. And then really lightly. And then when you add the one on the bottom here on the nighttime sky, he's going to come up pretty high and then curve right to the middle. I'm going to go ahead and do my best to kind of move that around. So go ahead, block in the first layer for your clouds. We are going to be adding some shadows and some highlights, but for right now, we're just going to focus on the middle color, so then we'll add shadows and highlights. And if you need to go back in and adjust anything, go ahead and touch up some of these clouds on this side. And if any questions come up, please write a comment. So again, this is what mine looks like right now. So I'll have you go ahead and work on these clouds until let's do about 5 minutes, so till just about 8 o'clock. Okay, so for the next step, with my dry brush, I'm going to just use straight up dark blue. If you want to darken your blue up a little bit more, you could always add a little bit of black to it. So I just went ahead and I'm scraping out any of the extra paint off on the side of my plate. And then this is going to be going towards the bottom. And I'm doing that same curving motion. You can bring it right up to that other cloud as well. That's up to you. Okay. And then you may notice, now that I got the shadow here, that there's this real distinct line between my shadow and then the middle part, the middle tone. So I will take some of that blue and white mixture. And again, just a real tiny, tiny amount. And then while this is still wet, I'm just going to take a little bit of this color. And right where the two colors meet, you might go down in a little bit further, but I'm going ahead and blending those together. Doing that nice swirl motion across. And some of this might go up a little higher, you might go down a little further, just so it's not an even line between the dark and the light. There we go. There we go. So then I got the bottom part of the cloud, which is the shadow, and then I got that where they meet together, and then I kind of softened up the edge with a little bit of that lighter, that medium blue, to soften that up. And I'm going to do that on this one and this one as well. So I'll go ahead, grab some of that darker blue, scrape out the extra, and then same thing. And you can go down a little further if you want, and then bring it up. And then again, I'll grab some of the light blue. Scrape off the extra. And then go ahead and soften that edge up. And if you go too far with that darker or the medium lighter blue, you could always go back in with some of the dark blue too. So don't feel like you can't go back the other way if you've blended too much with that base color. All right, so let me know if you have any questions. And then we'll stay here on this step. I'll give you about 10 more minutes again. If you need more time, let me know. But otherwise, we will be moving on to putting in the clouds on the sunshine side. So for the next step here on the daytime clouds, I'm going to be mixing some orange and some white together. So we get this nice kind of like medium toned orange, almost like a dreamsicle. And then again, you're going to go ahead and scrape off any of the extra paint because we want our brush to be nice and dry, and less paint is more. And then I'm going to go right here, right where these two meet. You know what, I'm going to add just a smidge more white. You know what, I'm going to go a little crazy and add a little yellow in there too. There we go. I just wasn't feeling that color. So I did yellow, orange, and then I added a little more white. There we go. Okay. So same thing, this one I'm going to have kind of kiss the bottom of here, so this looks like it's starting to swirl behind these clouds. Then I'll have it get a little thicker, and then I'll have it kind of meet back up there. And then for this guy, I'm going to have him actually be a little more straight and then kind of come up over here. And if you have some of the colors kind of cross over into the night sky, that is perfectly okay. And then this bottom one, I'm also going to keep him a little more straight. I'll bring him up a little bit over here too. Okay. So that's what I got. And then once you have those in, just like we did on the nighttime side, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use straight up orange over here for the shadow. Excuse me. Whew. So just a little bit, not a lot. And then again, I'm going to go ahead add that shadow. I'll extend it down a little bit. Bring it in. Now you can always, if you feel like that's too light, you could always grab a little more. Bring a little more in. But we're doing the same thing on the daytime side as the nighttime sky, only we're using, so over here for the shadow I used orange. And then you can always grab some more of that mid-tone, blend them in a little more. Or if you feel like you went too far with the shadow, you could always bring some more of that brighter color back in. And then feel free to rinse and dry your brush out whenever you need to. And then we'll be here doing this till about 8:25, and then I will go ahead and talk about the highlights on the clouds. And then as I'm going, I'll bring this closer, going back in with some of the darker orange there. I have some areas of orange now that are a little darker with a second layer. So you can definitely go add some more orange on top of orange that's already there, just to kind of give variation in the colors. You want to even be more bold and daring, maybe adding a little yellow in there. Any questions coming up as we're working on this? All right, well, we'll be here for just a little more over 5 minutes, and then we're going to start adding those highlights. Alright, so I'll bring mine just a little closer again so you can see what's going on with mine. You can see I did have some of the orange go into the blue a little bit just so they merge together. But you can see that the clouds up here helped overlap or make that look like it's swirling behind. Okay, everybody. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to add the highlights. Now, if you look at the side that's on the night side, the highlights are a little softer, not as bright as the ones on the daytime side. So we're going to be using a lot of white over here. I did have some of them in the middle extend over, just so they look like they're merging together. But then the ones here on the night side, there's actually going to be just a touch of blue in the white. So it's going to be a lot of white and a little blue, just so we're brighter than what we already have on here. Okay. And then just like we did for when we started the clouds and then added the shadows, just a teeny tiny amount of paint in the brush. Get as much of the water out as you can. And I actually want to make that just a smidge darker. So you might need to play with the shade of the blue, because I'm just making that a little too light than what I want. Okay. Yeah, some go up there, some go that way. Now, if you do have what's going on with mine, where it's pretty bright, you could always take some of that middle blue shade and then just kind of soften up in the middle there if you need to. There we go. Just kind of soften. Maybe some of the blue go over there. But any touch-ups you need to do, feel free. But just be really subtle with your highlights. And again, if you feel like they're too bright, just go ahead and just add a little more blue. You could even just go in here, maybe just add a couple, especially as you get further down. I mean, this is closer to the moon, so there's going to be some more highlights on it. And you can switch the direction. Okay. All right, so this is kind of what I got. So I'm keeping it brighter here because the moon's going to be there, and then they're a little more softer as they go down. And then once you're ready for the other side, I would just use some straight up white. And again, just very little. And then you can go in here and swirl in some of the white. And then also too, if you do want to add maybe a little bit of yellow to the white, if you need to blend it a little bit better, that's okay too. Just as long as we have these being highlights. Let me know if you have questions, but these highlights are going to be going on the tops of the clouds. Some areas might be brighter, some areas might be softer. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use, actually we can use a medium brush for both of these. And then if you got a nice pointed brush, that's going to work great for the moon. But the sun has a smidge of yellow in it. And then I'm sure I've talked about this before, but if you start in the middle and then slowly work your way out, then you can always fill in, but then go ahead and fill in that space with your sun. And then with the moon, I'm just going to use straight up white and then a smaller brush. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw there we go. It's actually looking like a C. And this is more of a stylized moon, so if it's a little more curvy or a little more straight in some areas, that's all right. And I'm going to go ahead and connect in the middle. There we go. And then having the moon right in the middle of that halo gives it that nice, there we go, nice little glow. So there we go. And then once you have your sun and moon in, when you are ready, on the bottom, I'm just going to go maybe an inch, inch and a half tall. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight, just so it reaches the bottom. You're painting your edges, make sure to paint your edges. And I'm going to put my ground in. There we go. And then once you have the ground in, let me know, and then we're moving on to our tree. What? Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm using a medium brush. And then for the tree, I'm just going to start right smack and dab in the middle here, going right over where the day and the night meet. And I am just going to go ahead and make a line. Might need to go over it more than once. And then go ahead and start putting a branch there, and then maybe a branch there. So that's what I got. And you know what, I'm gonna go big or go home with the tree. There we go. And then from the bottom, depending on how big you want your tree, I'm going to go ahead and put the trunk in, and it angles in there. Angles in there. So I kind of have that. And then I'll go ahead, put a branch maybe here. As I go up, same thing, I'll put a branch over here. And if you notice as I'm adding my branches, they're not perfectly straight. They do have bends and curves. And then I'll go ahead and fill in my trunk. And then I'm going to start on this branch here, and I just want to make my trunk a little thicker. So I just kind of tapered in, making my tree just a little bigger. Do the same thing over here. Actually give my tree a little bump. Okay. And there we are. And then this branch that's going up towards the top, I am gonna, there we go, fill in there. Just so it looks a little wider. And then once you do have your tree to this point, you can go ahead, add some more main trunks. Just make sure they're thicker towards the main part of the tree and then smaller as they go out towards the sky. And then you can add some little extra branches coming off. So you can have a lot of branches, not a lot of branches. Choice is yours. Just notice that I'm making sure that they're not perfectly straight, that they do have little kinks in them because branches do. And let me know if you have any questions. And then as you're working on your tree, as you start to finish putting the branches on, if you notice on the daytime side only, if you want to use a smaller brush, you can go ahead and dab some leaves. Some of them are touching the tree, some of them are not. And then some of the leaves can touch each other. Okay. With leaves, sometimes it's easy to just keep going. And then if you look, once you have the tree in, if you look towards the bottom and it goes all the way across, there's grass. And you're just going to start inside the ground and you're just going to flick up. Some will be taller, some will be shorter. Use a smaller brush again. You could have some bend one way, bend the other way. It's grass. Let me know if you have any questions on any of this. And then the grass on the night side, you can also mix gray. And you can see I put some of the gray in front of the tree. And then I'm going to add a couple gray pieces of grass going across on the nighttime side. Alright, and then I'll give you a couple minutes there. And then once you're to that point, we only got one more step left, and it's one of my favorites. So the last thing we're going to do, and I'm going to take the back end of a brush. You could use your big brush or your medium brush. And I'm going to dunk the back end in white. And then I'm going to go ahead and make some stars. You could even have a couple go into the daytime part. I just wouldn't do a lot. But I'm going a little bit with just one dab of the paint, just so I haven't redunked yet, just so I get some different sizes of stars. And then I'm going to be putting these in the areas where the clouds aren't. So right by the moon. And then probably right a couple here between this cloud and the grass. Looks like I got a little space there too. So anywhere there aren't clouds, go ahead, add some stars. And if you need to rotate your brush a little bit, just kind of turn it to get a better circle. That's fine. And I'm going to put a couple along the edge too, or it looks like it's curving around. Just so it looks like this is wrapping around. And the stars don't look like they're framed in. And then after that, I have nothing left to teach you, but you're more than free to keep painting once you're done with your stars. Do you have any touch-ups you want to do? Just make sure to sign your masterpiece when you're done. But this is what mine looks like. So a decent amount of stars. There we go. Okay. But I just want to thank you again for painting with me this evening. This has been a great time. This is always a fun one to paint. And hopefully we'll be getting more leaves on our trees soon. And hopefully I'll see you in another class soon.